Good morning, coffee moaners. Good morning, good morning. It's a Monday morn. How are we all? Just off the bat, just to say we're having issues with one of our Wi-Fi providers. So I am on not the usual Wi-Fi signal. So apologies if I have to dovetail between them or if we encounter any difficulties. Sometimes I will or might have to. There may just be a brief interlude as I disappear and come back, so apologies. Morning, Bella M90. Lovely that you could make a live. Nice to see you. Well, not see you, but hear you. No, not hear you, but read you. Morning, everyone. I hope you all had a good weekend. Morning, Zoe. How are you, Stuart G? Hope Mark had a lovely birthday. Yeah, wow, God almighty. So the last time we saw you was Saturday night. Sunday, I wasn't feeling very well at all. So we were going to do the Sunday show. So the Sunday show for members is going to be tomorrow evening at 6:30. So we will see you there. More content will be landing later today. Hope you all had a good weekend. But like I say, yes, yeah, thank you, Elaine Denning. Yes, just tragically sad. Thanks, Zoe. I think perhaps, or potentially a combination or a cumulative effect of just so much shit going down, not only in the world, but obviously in our lives too. Morning, Robert Marriott. Thank you very much. Linda Stevenson, morning. Morning to family members and subscribers alike. So yeah, the last time we saw you, and you know, maybe some of you are unaware of what happened on Saturday, the shooting of Alex Pretti in Minnesota or Minneapolis. Alex Pretti was an ICU nurse for veterans. Here are some images of him. This is the man that the ICE agents in America, I would say, executed on the floor. So trigger warning, we are going to be talking about the tragic loss of this man's life. There is going to be footage, there's slow motion footage. And the reason for all of this is the American, or the Trump regime, as I call it, is seeking to make us think that we're not seeing what we're seeing, we're not hearing what we're hearing, and we're not allowed to think what most normal human beings would think when they see and hear what we're seeing and hearing. So because there's such a sort of a moral dissonance between what the vast majority of Americans and people around the world can see versus what the government are telling us is happening. Now, this isn't the first time we've had this. And I take no delight in kind of drawing the comparison and saying, well, we told you so. But what, unfortunately, numerous Americans are going through, and what people are going through by proxy in seeing what the American, you know, American protesters or American citizens are going through in Minnesota, is the same constant gaslighting, denial, and twisting of the truth that those of us who have, you know, family in or an understanding of the history of the conflict between, say, Israel and the Palestinians, we knew it was all coming in. We all knew that it was all going to happen. We knew when we heard about October the 7th, we knew what was going to follow it because Israel has history in manipulating crises, in taking advantage of crises, in disseminating untruths, in manufacturing discontent. So, you know, what we're going through here in America feels like a first time and a new thing for everyone because it's Americans. And what we're all feeling in our shock, we're feeling it, is that sort of baked in exceptionalism and privilege that we all hand over to the idea of this happening to one of us. I mean, okay, they're Americans for us in Britain, but you know, these are kind of people like, these are the same sorts of looking people as we all live amongst. I mean, you know, I'm saying this from the perspective of if you see color and ethnicity and you know, different creeds and cultures as a problem. Farida, you're absolutely right. I'm sure you predicted this kind of situation hitting the West at least a year ago. I mean, it's baked into the very phrase, in our thousands and our millions, we are all Palestinians. What people meant by that is everywhere. As people kind of here went, what are they talking about? Probably support Hamas. I bet they're wearing a keffiyeh and they support Hamas. What are they saying? What's that? In our millions, in our thousands. No, in our thousands. Well, this is what we mean. And we're just digging into a document, Michi, you may be across this, reforms document, which is entitled, we're not going to talk about it here today, but there is a document called Operation Restoring Justice that Reform have published. They've published it publicly in August last year. And some are describing it as this country's version of Project 2025, which is the, the document or the doctrine that the Trump regime is following. So if you believe that this can't happen here, it might happen with a more formal knock on the door and not so much of a bullet in your head, thank God. But bear with me 1 second. Apologies if you're listening on podcast. We have poorly people in the house, so I had to go and get the door. Elaine, the way they disregard international law means no accountability. Slippery Starmer's rewording of the SNP motion in Parliament was to cut the phrase collective punishment, which is a crime. So all of this is happening here. I did a very brief Instagram reel last night. Shabana Mahmood, our Home Secretary, has announced the formation of a British FBI. And it's interesting seeing many of the comments beneath that reel. Lots of people saying, well, isn't that what MI5, MI6, counter-terror, what the fuck is all that about? And one can't help but feel that there is, because essentially the newly created FBI in Britain is going to be dedicated to terrorism. And the problem with that, it doesn't take a fucking genius to work this out, is that when a terrorist is now a granny holding a sign saying, I'm anti-genocide, I support Palestine action, we all know what that means. And the Labour Party are doing it. This isn't reform. The Labour Party are laying the foundations for reform. Some people said I was a bit negative in saying when reform get in. Where we're at the moment, my prediction is a guaranteed reform majority conservative coalition. And if that gets in, everything we hate about the system right now is going to get 20 times worse. Now, that doesn't mean you vote Labour, because Labour aren't going to get in, and Labour are laying the groundwork for this. Labour are laying the groundwork for this in their attempt to become more centrist, to appeal to more reform voters. Labour is just doing the walk. It's walking over towards the horrors of reform. And reform is just looking over at America and watching Trump all gooey-eyed. There's Farage, really large talking. I've got a pint of beer and I'm a real man. Oh, yeah, I didn't really go to Dulwich and, oh, yeah, I'm not really posh and, yeah, the Cotswolds and, yeah. There is, oh, Trump is he's a brave man. He's a brave man. He's not. He's a madman. So what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about the Trump regime has justified the shooting of Alex Pretti. Helped by the mainstream media like the New York Post, etc. He was brandishing a gun, apparently. Wow, I didn't see any gun brandished. Did anyone else? I saw his gun taken from him and held by an ICE officer. And I saw an ICE officer brandish a gun and shoot at close range into him. Something like 9, 10, 11 times. So we're gonna explore that. We're going to explore the way in which we're going to see clips from, Kristi Noem, as she is a gnome, as she seeks to kind of legitimize what's happened here. We're going to hear from Greg Bovino, is that his surname? The guy who just looks like he just wants to be the figurehead for the SS in his trench coat and what have you, the head of the border control, the border Tsar, which is interesting use of words there. Tsar as in Russian king or Russian leader and all the rest of it. We're going to look at those, and we're just going to consider the aftermath of this shooting and how it's going to play out in terms of the National Guard. Allegedly, it's very hard to get sort of the absolute clarity on this. It seems that the National Guard have been sent into parts of Minnesota by Tim Waltz. And I want to unpack what that means, because it can be a little bit confusing. You're like, well, hang on, it's bad when Trump says he wants to send in the National Guard. How does that affect the ICE agents? When they say DHS, they don't mean the sofa warehouse. They mean the Department for Homeland Security, who work with, and ICE is, I think, part of that department. So, you know, ICE, National Guard, Democratic leaders in Minnesota pushing back against the Trump regime, demanding all sorts of kind of bits of information about the electoral roll in return for them potentially removing ICE officers and all this kind of stuff. So it might sound complicated, but what's happening over there is something that could easily happen here. And the irony is that on the one hand, the lack of guns here is potentially a good thing, because it means that people won't get shot, though there is the capacity with a reform and conservative government for them to change the rules or loosen the rules around gun control for police officers, perhaps. That's an issue. But also sometimes when there are no guns here, it means that the attempts and the ability to just grab people and arrest them more, there's almost no fear from the authorities. Whereas at least in America, the ICE agents do have to have some element of, you know, being a bit guarded, I guess, in case someone opposite them has guns. So it's a fucking mess. I mean, it's a real mess in America. And I'm really curious to know what you think, guys, whether Trump will have to dial back or roll back on the suggestion there's not going to be an investigation into Alex Pretti's shooting. Are they going to have to? And if they do an investigation, is it going to be a totally jaundiced one? There's already another report kind of doing the rounds at the moment where someone's suggesting that the ICE officer that took the gun off Alex Pretti and was running away with the gun, so they disarmed him before shooting him. That's the other thing. But what they're now trying to suggest, they're trying to get this narrative away, which is the gun they'd taken off Alex Pretti accidentally fired into the floor, to the ground, and it spooked one of the ICE agent officers. Now, if that is what happened, and it did spook an ICE officer, it's yet further proof that the ICE officers or agents need yet more training than just 47 days. So we're gonna, you know, and also another question for you guys: who thinks at which point and at what point is brandishing a camera or a phone? And this is an interesting point, actually. The one thing none of us have seen, and will we ever? I wonder whether Alex Pretti's family have pushed for them handing back basically Alex Pretti's phone. We know he was filming. We've seen photographs of him filming, and I am about to show you lots of clips. And again, be warned. You know, there is gunfire, there is the discharging of bullets. It's the same footage you've seen around. Some of it is slow mode, so be mindful. If you're of a delicate disposition, you might want to look away. Janina M, you think he fired a shot deliberately to provide evidence against Alex? I don't know if he was necessarily. I don't necessarily think any of these ICE agents are that quick-witted to have known to do that. But you're right, maybe could have done. But it would be fascinating to know where his camera is and where his footage is, because we all know that the woman in pink or the woman in red footage is the footage that we've kind of, lots of people are leaning on as the clearest kind of footage. She was almost positioned where he was. So I just want to share with you in some of the latest headlines. Share your thoughts in the chat room, please. A wake-up call to America. So how do we feel about this? Barack Obama makes rare political statement condemning Trump administration for Alex Pretti shooting. I don't know about anyone else, but I find when the likes of Tony Blair or Biden, it's like, you know, lots of people still like the Obamas. I just think fuck right off. Too little, too fucking late. Where the fuck have the Democrats been in allowing this to slide to this position? What have the Democrats done other than just chomp at the bit in their desire to demonize Trump and potentially driven more support towards Trump? So I don't know how you feel, guys. How do you feel that Barack Obama and his wife, we're told, and his wife, so we're supposed to all get really excited about this. Former President Barack Obama and his wife, Michelle, called the killing a heartbreaking tragedy. Wow, well, we all know that. and a wake-up call to every American. Well, we've had many wake-up calls prior to this, regardless of party, that many of our core values as a nation are increasingly under assault. And where were America's core values under assault whilst you said fuck diddly squat about a genocide happening in Gaza? Because this is the problem. When people get used to seeing civil rights completely trampled over, when people get used to hearing the term terrorism, or there were Hamas in the ambulance, people begin to soften their kind of moral fiber, and people begin to legitimize the possibility of otherwise innocent, untouchable targets being kind of in the rules of war. Well, maybe we can give it a pass on this one. And the Obamas allowed that, just like the Clintons did. They, as we know, they're caretakers. They're as compromised by the state of Israel, the government of Israel, the regime of Israel that has bought American politics and controls the American system. That's not a trope. It's a statement of fact, because more and more Zionists and more supporters of the Israeli government tell us this fact. And I've got a quote in a while from the guy who's now co-owns or looks after the US iteration of TikTok. So the difference is they're not Americans. The Palestinians aren't Americans, but the bigger difference is that they're not white, and they're not sort of our sort of Americans. And it's that really tricky word, Islam and Muslim, So when Obama cracks in, I feel like saying do one, because it's like, so what? I don't give a flying monkey's jollop. But everyone's very excited. A wake-up call to America, says Barack Obama. Once again, like Tony Blair, stand up and state the fucking obvious. And just because of what? Because of what now that we should listen to you? Have you got any other observation or suggestion that could be more useful or compelling? No, of course not. Interesting use of words in this Mail article over the weekend or yesterday. These brutal ICE killings will only serve to validate claims Trump is turning the US into a fascist state. The tone on that, as a kind of by Freddie Gray, these brutal ICE killings will only serve to validate claims Trump is turning the US into. It's almost like, what a shame about these killings, not for the loss of life, but for the fact that it strengthens people's belief that Trump is running a fascist state. It doesn't strengthen people's opinions. It diagnoses and defines what he's doing as fascist. And yet the Mail, once again, in its really quite icky, manipulative use of words, these brutal ICE killings, so they said brutal, so that, yeah, they are brutal, will only serve to validate claims Trump. It's like what a shame. This is like, well, this is annoying. Astonishing, isn't it? The right-wing media, quite astonishing. I think I've got one here from the Telegraph. Just gonna have a sip of coffee. Give us your thoughts. Nicholas Vile, 1789. And where the Republicans are, they can stop this. Democrats can't do much due to their minority in the houses. You say that, but it's like they can shout louder. Take advantage of social media. To be brutally honest, I mean, I think, well, they haven't even actually used social media. It's regional news in Minnesota. Tim Waltz and Jacob Frey have. America is still asleep, Tanya Bartlett. MeTube, Americans won't give up guns. If anything, the NRA will use this period to say it's only because of guns it didn't get worse. But that reminds me, we're in a very curious situation where the Trump regime the Trump regime are caught in a massive contradiction here around gun ownership and the right to bear arms. Because Alex Pretti had a gun. It was holstered. He wasn't waving it about. He wasn't going to use it. And the American regime, we're going to get to some clips in a minute, are trying to suggest that turning up to a peaceful protest with a gun in your holster is not right. And yet this is a government that talks about the right for everyone to own guns. And you can feel they're caught in a total kind of moral quandary or gun-owning quandary, because he was simply, enacting his right. And he certainly wasn't brandishing it, as the New York Post is trying to claim, in a threatening fashion. Bringing a gun never makes the situation safer, but he's done nothing illegal. He's done nothing illegal. And all of the ICE agents are bringing guns. So of course, yeah, guns make you less safe. But you know, if we want to stick to the letter of the American law and Trump's promotion of gun ownership, Alex Pretti was behaving like a fully responsible American citizen, least of all because, let's not forget, he was going as a legal observer knowing that they'd shot Rennie Good in the face. Okay, so let's just scroll through. I just found that curious use. More Republicans call for investigation after Minneapolis shooting as it happened. Let me just get rid of some of these headlines up above. Fuck off, Obama. You drive me absolutely insane. I just find the way they just stand up and say stuff, and everyone's supposed to pause and just go, "Oh wow, the Obamas have said something." Do you know what? Fuck off. So a judge is to hear the case on the Minnesota's ICE crackdown after killings. Trump has said that his administration is reviewing everything after the Pretti killing. He says the president has reportedly was asked twice whether the federal agent who killed Pretti had acted appropriately, and he responded. This is Trump's response to the Wall Street Journal. "We're looking, we're reviewing everything, and we'll come out with a determination." That's being telegraphed to the world as being, oh, he's softening. No, what I read into him saying, "We're looking at it, we're considering it, we'll give you a determination," is they're looking at how they can retrofit the story. Yeah, God forbid, maybe he had it for protection, Jan. I wonder why. Why would he need it for protection with ICE officers running around shooting people in faces, shooting fingers off, etc.? So when Trump says it, this is sort of breaking news this morning, 6 minutes ago. He also told the newspaper, "I don't like any shooting. I don't like it. But I don't like it when somebody goes into a protest and he's got a very powerful, fully loaded gun with 2 magazines loaded up with bullets also. That doesn't play good either." But is that not the right that Trump and the gun lobby have said all Americans are entitled to? This is the bit that I don't understand. So suddenly it's like we want freedom of speech as long as what you say is only what we want you to say. And you must own a gun, and you must have the right to own a gun in a responsible fashion, loaded. What's the point of a gun if it's not? In a holster, legally bought, legally owned, but you shouldn't have it here. You shouldn't have it here in this situation right now, which is threatening. And he's not brandishing it, he's just filming. So when I hear, a lot of, the Telegraph, etc., various places trying to suggest that, that Trump's softening and suggesting, and this is my thing. I think Trump, in saying we're going to look at it, we're going to give a determination, I think he hopes that's all he needs to do to lower the kind of heat in America, because there's no two ways about this. This could ignite much more than it is than it's ignited already very quickly in America, because it doesn't take an awful lot for Minnesota, Minneapolis, and the rest of it all to completely go up. If one more casualty happens, if one citizen, and this has crossed my mind, say if one citizen decides to take out an ICE officer, and I've got a clip actually from someone who talks about this. Maybe, I think it might be this chap. Let me just play this clip.
An update about the ICE shooting in Minnesota today. We just learned.
No, it's not. So it's not that one. I have got a quote by someone suggesting that what the regime wants is to sacrifice an ICE agent at some point, because if someone shoots an ICE agent dead, then they can reverse that kind, or try to reverse the sympathies. Watch this space. America has a long tradition. So I was putting my finger in the soil in the garden. America has, countries have a long tradition of false flags and counter protesters and agitators within crowds. It feels like at the point that Trump might lose the ability to defend something like this, they're going to keep going for this idea that he shouldn't have had a gun. It was loaded. It was an accidental firing as he took the gun away, all this kind of stuff. The other thing that could well happen here is there could be a situation, keep one's eyes peeled, because the only thing I can imagine that would reverse things for the government, for the American regime, for the Trump regime, would be if an ICE officer was shot blatantly by someone they could definitively describe in their terms as a domestic terrorist. Why is Trump doing this before the midterms? Because he doesn't want the midterms, I think, Gabrielle. I think what we're hurtling towards here is his popularity is cratering. And what he's interestingly done with these ICE agents is he's created a highly funded, massively funded militia. Many reports coming through that some of the January the 6th insurrectionists, members of the Proud Boys, far right, fascist supporters are in the ranks of ICE. I mean, it doesn't surprise you, does it? Why wouldn't you want to join ICE? Here's the thing. If you're a racist and a fascist and you hate all foreigners and you want to cleanse the country, you would join ICE. You wouldn't not join ICE. It's not like what ICE is doing doesn't help your cause. It does help your cause. So he's doing this. Why is he doing it? Well, you know what? In the next 5 to 6 days, things could accelerate so fast, not just in Minnesota, but in other democratic states, or what they call sanctuary cities, places in America where there's a democratic leaning, a more progressive leaning, where migration is tolerated more, where there is a perception amongst MAGA and the Trumpites that Democrats go soft on illegal migrants, et cetera, et cetera. And not surprisingly, migrants of most hues gravitate to those environments, those neighborhoods where they're less, the neighborhoods are less hostile to them. So, so they really are, the Trump regime is really trying to, get this, it's really important to get this narrative across that Democrats are insurrectionists. And that could account for some of the kind of tight-lipped commentary coming from Democrats. I think they're unfortunately caught like rabbits in headlights. They're too afraid to be as strong as they need to be. I mean, AOC has said a couple of things, but we are, we're in a tricky situation where I think if the Democrats say too much, I mean, even Tim Walz and Jacob Frey in Minnesota, every time they express a strongly worded statement, Donald Trump seizes upon it. He calls them agitators. He calls them protectors of domestic terrorism, etc. So I'm just going to finish these headlines off. Obama's, say Alex Pretti killing a tragedy. Well, we can all fucking say that. This is interesting, just quickly. Minnesota ICE shooting, FBI supervisor was forced to resign after trying to investigate the agent who shot Rennie Good. So even if you are an FBI federal agent with some degree of moral certitude and responsibility, you get muscled out. Tracy Mergen's decision to leave the FBI, a supervisor in the FBI's Minneapolis field office who has unsuccessfully attempted to investigate the shooting of Rennie Good, has resigned, according to multiple reports. The suggestion being she was forced out. So you can't even investigate these things. We've done that. Misfire. Here we go. Look, this is the Daily Telegraph. Misfire of victim's gun could have triggered fatal ICE shooting. It's not put in inverted commas. Alex Pretti's weapon may have been fired accidentally by immigration officer running from scene. That isn't, so by not putting it in inverted commas, this is just a statement of possible fact. People will read that breezily and go, oh, maybe it was a miss. And that's how the media works. That's how the legacy media works. It delivers you a headline that makes ambivalent or seeks to, lessen the heat or the implications of something awful that's happened. And not all, but many people will see that and go, oh, right, God, so it's unfortunate. That's what they're getting. Yeah, they are grasping at straws. It's unfortunate, isn't it? I mean, God, obviously. Oh, people will be at the water cooler. Well, did you not see there was that headline saying that maybe it went off when he was walking and that spooked the guy? So that's just a sense of some of what's being said Now, I'm just so that we know what we're talking about, trigger warning, I'm going to show you the footage that the Guardian's uploaded to their YouTube channel. This is a sort of stop and start breakdown of what happened to Alex Pretti, just in case you missed it on Saturday, you haven't seen it. This is just to kind of reorientate ourselves once again. So we're watching, actually, in a minute, the camera pans right and you see Alex Pretti standing in the road. That's him there. Eyewitness footage shows a man identified as Alex Pretti who appears to film federal agents.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Pretti appears to come to the defense of other observers. So he's looking after this person. He's moved her out of the way, or him. They push a woman to the floor. He goes down to protect her. Then a federal officer repeatedly uses pepper spray. You can see it in the air there. So Alex Pretti is trying to look after the woman on the floor. Alex Pretti goes down. He's underneath that scrum. And watch the guy just sort of leaning in the middle. One federal agent seen pulling out his gun. First shot is heard. That will be where... And what's interesting about that is none of the ICE agents move in to check on him, to administer any kind of emergency kind of care or call anyone else in. No panic from the ICE agents whatsoever. Now you can see from that footage, rest assured, as sure as night follows day and day follows night, the line that will come from the government is that his gun fired off. A very quick detail that was flooded into the zone, if you like, into the public realm, was the idea that his type of handgun is notorious for accidentally shooting. And I can guarantee you that post the investigation that Trump is suggesting might happen, it will be suggested and stated that when his gun accidentally fired, and in that melee, what they're doing right now, what the government is doing, what the FBI is doing right now in America, is assessing all of the various different bits of footage that there is, making sure there isn't a single clip or shot. This is why sometimes it's good not to always just flood footage that you might have of something like this out straight away. Hold back on it. But of course, the danger is that maybe yours is vital at that point. So, but that's going to be the line. That's going to be the investigation. That's the direction of traffic that it's going to go. I just want to share, these were some of the responses from Trump, Vance et al. The mayor and governor, this is what Trump said about the mayor and governor of Minnesota, are inciting insurrection with their pompous, dangerous, and arrogant rhetoric. Let our ICE patriots do their job. 12,000 illegal alien criminals, many of them violent, have been arrested and taken out of Minnesota. If they were still there, you would see something far worse than you are witnessing today. J.D. Vance said, this level of engineered chaos is unique to Minneapolis. It is the direct consequence of far-left agitators working with local authorities. And Hegseth, the human Viagra pill, says, thank God for the patriots of ICE. We have your back 100%. You are saving the country. Shame on the leadership of Minnesota and the lunatics in the street. Staggering, isn't it? Breaking, Pam Bondi just sent a letter to Minnesota officials saying ICE will be removed if the state hands over its voter database to Trump. This isn't about safety or immigration. It's about controlling elections in swing states. This is how democracy gets stolen. Minnesota, says Donald J. Trump, is a criminal cover-up of the massive financial fraud that's gone on. So they are trying to blackmail the governor, the mayor, into handing over the electoral rolls. What they're saying is, we'll pull our ICE agents out if you tell us everyone that's on your electoral roll, and you can bet your bottom dollar that once they hand over, and if they were to hand over the electoral roll, every other citizen in the state that isn't on the roll will get a knock on their door from ICE. It would be a way to legitimize taking this off the street. And I do think what we're going to see happen here, you can't stop the proliferation of cameras. You can't stop the filming of these things, whether it be on the street or from afar. You know, what will start to happen, I believe, is that they will do whatever they can to be able to literally go into properties of homes, private properties, where there's less possibility of this stuff being filmed by other people, where they can control the narrative much more. I think that's what I think they're so sophisticated. Trump isn't, but those behind him doing this and conducting this kind of this pogrom of American citizens, migrants, illegal or not illegal or legal. I think this is what will happen. If they can push the interceptions and interventions indoors, that will happen for sure. But again, it's just this is what they're saying they want, you know. Well, look, let's have a listen to Tim Walz.
At any point that you're not with this anymore. If you voted for this administration, heck, even if you thought Operation Metro Surge was a good idea, sounded like the thing to do a month ago, you're still allowed to look at what's happening here in Minnesota and say, this isn't what I voted for and this isn't what I want. I ask you not to stand by idly. Speak out, share what you're seeing, and urge others to put politics aside. We're no longer having a political debate, we're having a moral debate. I don't care if you are conservative and you are flying a Donald Trump flag, you're a libertarian, don't tread on me, you're a democratic socialist of America. This is an inflection point, America. If we cannot all agree that the smearing of an American citizen and besmirching everything they stood for and asking us not to believe what we saw, I don't know what else to tell you. This is not we need to see both sides. This is not we need to wait for this. This is basic human decency. And at this point in time, I'm just asking, try for a moment to set aside the political side of it and go back and ground in the humanity of this.
Interesting words there. Interesting words there. There's no two-sidism to this. Isn't it interesting how we have been disallowed the ability to say that about the genocide? And it all connects up. We are seeing this unrest happen in a country that is controlled at the highest level by Israeli governmental, agendas. And it just strikes me as odd that the Democrats, and, you know, I feel for Tim Walz in this moment, but let's not forget, he was Kamala Harris's running mate. He was running for vice president. And I didn't hear the same level of certainty about how there is no two-sidism to this situation in Gaza. And I just wonder, I'd really like to be a fly on the wall of the craniums of Democratic voters, Democratic politicians who never felt they could quite step towards the reality of what was happening to the Palestinians, and whether a small part of them just has a scintilla of empathy or sympathy or understanding now of how, for those of us who knew what was coming after October the 7th, could see what was happening since October the 7th, that when we said there is no two-sidism here, you can't see both sides. One side is just fucking wrong. If you can say it now in Minnesota, why can't you apply the same to the Palestinians? Mainly because the footage coming out of Gaza was poisoned by the propaganda machine. We were told it was always Hamas. We were told not to believe it, or better still, by the Israeli government, they killed all the journalists on the ground and disallowed journalists to go in. In America, there is still the capacity to film this stuff. But there is still, I'd love to know whether there, Alison Barber, you say there isn't. I'd still love to know. I'd love to know whether there's any reflection now on how the plight of the Palestinians was described, dismissed, overlooked, marginalized in pursuit of this mythical fear that being critical of Israel's genocide was somehow anti-Semitic. Got another clip for you.
Kristi Noem has forfeited her right to lead.
This is the New York Governor, Kathy Hochul, calling on Kristi Noem to resign.
And I'm calling on her to resign as Secretary of Homeland Security, or Donald Trump to do the right thing and just fire her. And if not, she must be removed or impeached. And Gregory Bovino, who has helped lead and defend and escalate these operations, should also be fired.
More and more leaders coming out, saying this stuff. What is she? Is she going to be characterized as a domestic terrorist? So that was the New York governor demanding Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino be fired or impeached. How can we get this done? How can they achieve this with the system that they currently have? Another clip coming in.
You talk about meeting some world leaders, and one specific one, quote, I remember when I met with North.
So this is an interview with Kristi Noem in which she lies about having met Kim Jong-un. Just to give you a sense of the woman that we're going to hear in a moment, lying about, well, actually, let me just play you this before we go to that.
Had no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement. About hundreds.
Did you hear that? She's describing the man you just saw with a camera trying to protect a woman who was double-handed pushed to the ground. Let's hear her just one more time.
No ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement. About hundreds.
So bear that in mind. That's her assessment, and this is her in interview being asked about her alleged meeting with Kim Jong-un.
Having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. I've been a children's pastor after all. Did you meet Kim Jong-un?
Well, you know, as soon as this was brought to my attention, I certainly made some changes and looked at this passage. And I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. As soon as it was brought to my attention, we went forward and have made some edits. So I'm glad that this book is being released in a couple of days and that those edits will be in place and that people will have the updated version.
So you did not meet with Kim Jong-un. That's what you're saying.
You know, I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. I think I've talked extensively in this book about my time serving in Congress, my time as governor, before governor, some of the travels that I've had. I'm not going to talk about my specific meetings with world leaders. I'm just not going to do that.
She's an active, lying lunatic. This is a woman who is rubbishing the reputation of a man who was an ICU nurse, and there's been a lot of footage doing the rounds on social media of him reading last rites over the bodies of veterans. He would look after veterans. I mean, this guy is you know, he legally, I mean, for us in Britain, we don't understand the idea of illegally owning a gun. I was in New York last year, and you know, you go into the hotel and it says, please leave your no handguns, personal handguns allowed in this hotel. It's just a different situation. But this guy, to all intents and purposes, in terms of his job, in terms of his responsibilities, in terms of his inclination, was verging on heroic. Thank you. Oh, Steve, thank you so much. The hypocrisy around the Second Amendment is shocking. The right to bear arms or the right to arm bears. So this guy, his reputation is being entirely sullied by the demonic-looking woman who lied about meeting Kim Jong-un. I mean, you couldn't make this shit up. Here's another clip.
Alex was the nurse, always right outside the vet's treatment area, only a few feet away, waiting at the ready to provide care and comfort.
This is a testimony from a vicar or a priest who knew Alex Pretti.
Especially comfort to veterans' family members. I just know he brought a lot of peace to families and friends just by his presence. Caring for veterans in a hospital setting is fundamentally different from civilian care because military service shapes not only a patient's medical history, but their identity, communication style, relationship with authority, their pain, and vulnerability. Veteran care requires clinicians and nurses who can treat both visible illness and the invisible weight of service. And I know that for a fact, having married a veteran with his own traumas from serving his country, and Alex understood that, and he brought that to his care of the veterans every day in the ICU. This is somebody who is executed by the state, to be clear. Where ICE agents tried to clear the crime scene afterwards, that is something that a fascist state does. That is not something that you can have in a democracy, as a secret police running around and gunning people down and then calling those people assassins. Alex wasn't an assassin. He was an ICU nurse. He was caring for somebody right before ICE murdered him. If America wants to be considered a Christian nation, then it first must follow the teachings of Jesus, which we see in Matthew 22, love God and love your neighbor. Jesus elsewhere says that we're called to love our enemies. So next time you encounter somebody who is using Christianity as a shield for their terrible behavior, ask them how they are loving their enemies. Ask Donald Trump how he's loving his enemies. Ask Pam Bondi how she's loving her enemies and by lying about them. Ask Greg Bovino how he's throwing tear gas containers at protesters, how that is loving his enemies. I would love to hear their explanation for this, because that is at the heart of Christianity, is a self-sacrificial love. Anything else comes from the devil.
Strong words there from a priest talking about the memory of Alex Pretti, talking about faith. Yeah, where is this love for your enemies? They invoke fucking religion. I mean, it's quite astonishing that all these Americans at the top, you know, at the top of Trump's regime, utilize religion to justify treating thy neighbor like shit and killing thy enemies. Forgiveness doesn't feature unless you're the guy that took off his imaginary ear, in which case he doesn't have an issue with it at all. Shakir al-Bad, they deport Jesus and even kill him if he came to the US now. I mean, they'd all get the shock of their life, wouldn't they? If Jesus turned up now, just because probably of his color, his ethnicity, his value system, everything about Jesus would be contrary to what Trump's regime is about. Oh, it's all so spectacularly awful. Oh, here we go. This is the clip that I was trying to find earlier. This is a guy, I forget his name, commentator, talking about what Trump's plan and desire for ICE agents is.
A lot of people are wondering what happens next. Where do we go from here? I'll tell you exactly what happens next. The Trump administration can't wait for one of their ICE agents to get shot by one of us. They are just seething at that idea, chomping at the bit at the thought of an ICE agent getting blasted in the face by one of us. Why, you may ask? Well, because ICE agents are disposable to Donald Trump. This is cannon fodder for him. They're his private army, right? His private military force, his secret police, okay? And all they're asking for is for one of us to bring a gun and shoot at one of their officers, and that's going to be their green light, their moment to use that ICE officer as a martyr to then enact stricter crackdowns on our civil liberties like the Insurrection Act and martial law. They know it's coming because they are pushing the American people past their breaking point. They're basically saying it's either shoot or be shot because ICE is killing people indiscriminately. And the only way people have to defend themselves is the Second Amendment, but you can't use the Second Amendment against ICE. You can only use it against the tyrannical government.
Very clear, very clear. There you have it. I mean, you know, therein lies the psychology of what Trump is up to and what his regime is up to. Pushing, provoking. And can anyone again hear the parallels? If you push people, disenfranchise them, remove their right to self-defense, remove their right to live peacefully, they end up resisting. And then what happens when you resist? You are characterized by the system as a domestic terrorist or as a Hamas terrorist. So can you begin to see how we have all been programmed and we've all been manipulated by our governments, by our media, by the Western, regime to essentially characterize any form of resistance to the system that doesn't serve the vast majority of people. If you resist, you are a terrorist. And I think more and more young people are wise to this, which is why we're beginning to see the system encroach upon social media, control what's shown or fed to people on TikTok, etc. This will spread to other social media platforms. There is a ticking clock of time to even us being able to say this. At some point, this will all be stopped. I mean, rest assured, if Reform and the Conservatives get in, they have a vested interest in the legacy media being the only media you listen to, because the legacy media only spouts their truths. So I think there's a ticking clock. And so for me, the idea of could Labour, oh, it's just another British election. Our next election is complete DEFCON 10. It's a defining moment in British history. It's not about, oh, well, maybe on this occasion we can vote. And I disagree with Zach Polanski on this. I don't think it's about we make progress here. There has to be a win. There has to be an oppositional win, a profound one, that at least doesn't guarantee the keys of authority just handed on a plate. The Labour Party is defunct and everyone needs to evacuate it quickly. Even though the election's 2 years ago, 2 years away. We are drifting into the hinterlands of what happened in Nazi Germany in the 30s. We are drifting into there. And canny people in the Weimar Republic of Germany were clearing out, getting out, removing themselves early. So I'm just gonna remove this. I just want to play you some more of the kind of legitimizing of what's happened by the American Trump regime.
Terrorism. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts.
Once again, Kristi Noem, the woman who never met Kim Jong-un, telling us those are the facts. And where I tell you where it baked in contradiction is in what the Americans say here, and you're going to hear from Greg Bovino in a minute, is on the one hand, they say we can't jump to conclusions. We have to await our investigation, which is essentially a wait for us to enact the cover-up so we can, like with Charlie Kirk, manage the narrative that we're going to feed to the public. We mustn't jump to conclusions, but they're jumping to conclusions. It's so weird. On the one hand, you mustn't jump to conclusions, but at the same time, they're telling us what's happened. They're telling us he was a domestic terrorist. It's so, I mean, and unfortunately, I hate to say it, anyone who's buying this shit and agreeing with this stuff must have the IQ of a fucking table leg.
And I know you can see it there, and I want to ask you about what you're seeing, because multiple angles.
So this is an interview with Greg Bovino, the border tsar, the head of ICE, Dana Bash, challenging Greg Bovino on what he actually sees in the footage of the killing of Alex Pretti.
Of this incident show him holding up a cell phone and recording it, not a gun. Did he at any point pull out his weapon?
Dana, good morning, and thanks for having me.
Fuck off.
The weapon, and we do know that the suspect did bring a weapon, a loaded 9mm high-capacity handgun to a riot. We do know that. As far as what happened in that intervening moment with the video that you just showed, that's going to come to light through the investigation. That's being investigated, and those facts and those questions will be answered soon enough.
You can see a screenshot of an agent in a green jacket approach Pretti, and then he appeared to take a gun away. When the agent took the gun away, which seems as though it was Pretti's gun, that happened before Pretti was shot. Why was an unarmed man shot multiple times by law enforcement, by your Border Patrol agents?
Dana, you don't know he was unarmed. I don't know he was unarmed. That's freeze frame adjudication of a crime scene via a photo. That's why we have investigators. That's why we have an investigation that is going to answer those questions. How many shots were fired? Who fired shots? Where was the guns? Where were the guns located? All those questions are going to be answered.
I think you can see the screen.
In the investigation. We're not going to adjudicate that here on TV in one freeze frame there.
Okay, it's not a freeze frame. We're showing a video of one of your agents taking the gun away, and that happened before Pretti was shot.
We don't know that agent was taking any gun away. That could have been the agent's, because we don't know that. the facts are going to come to light.
So you're
as to
disputing
what
the video
exactly
that that's
happened
what happened?
with an investigation. That's why we investigate.
Well, with respect, you say that's why we investigate, but you're also drawing other conclusions that sort of fly in the face of waiting for an investigation.
Yeah, and she hones in on the point that I just made. He says we need to investigate, but like she says, everything he says has presupposed an investigation. The Trump regime is telling us that he was a terrorist and then saying, oh, we need to wait for the investigation. You can't have it both ways. And he's also saying you can't adjudicate on freeze frame. If there's no better kind of evidence than multi-camera points of view of one situation, all demonstrating different aspects of the same action. And the most revealing part of all of this is the local police, local investigation teams were denied access to the crime scene. And when they sought a warrant or a ruling from a local judge, the FBI then denied them access. So Kash Patel is in this up to his elbows too. This is being managed, controlled. When they say we're doing an investigation, they are simply doing what they did with Charlie Kirk, which is how can we spin this narrative that we can then deliver to the public, deliver to our base, keep that increasing minority now of supporters of Trump on board that's a sizable enough minority to form a militia. I mean, what Trump has created here is his own militia. He has legitimized, funded, armed, and put on the streets of America his own militia, protected and hidden behind the word federal, which is why it was so fucking unspeakably crass that our own Home Secretary announced the launch of a British FBI yesterday. It's quite astonishing, Greg Bovino's defense, and we've got some more coming from him in a minute.
And it is early, we know, in this investigation into the shooting death of Alex Pretti.
So this is Fox News grilling, asking a question of Kristi Noem.
But I want to have you walk our audience through what exactly you know. So you said last night, it looks like a situation where an individual arrived at the scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement. Did he say, I'm going to kill you, or did he leave a note? How do you know that was his intent?
You know, part of this investigation will be hearing from those agents and officers and people on the ground. But we do know that he came to that scene and impeded a law enforcement operation, which is against federal law. It's a felony. When he did that, interacting with those agents, when they tried to get him to disengage, he became aggressive and resisted them throughout that process. These officers used their training, followed their protocols, and were in fear of their lives and the people around them. And that's how this tragedy unfolded, and we hope we never see it again. It grieves me to think about what his family is going through, but it also grieves me what's happening to these law enforcement officers every day out on the streets with the violence that they face.
Because you mentioned
Who thinks the majority of Trump supporters will go with this? Who thinks this is enough of an explanation, justification? I mean, I can't help but feel that even if they come out of this saying, well, at the end of the day, it was an accidental error and it was the gun fired by accident. Surely, is this a tipping point? Will they have to pull out? I don't know. Part of me, incoming clip. Greg Bovino.
Speculation after 24 hours. You've got a lot of speculation in there. That officer, let's think of what those agents were doing on that scene, making a split-second decision. You've had 24 hours to try and armchair quarterback things. That agent had a split second to make a decision. 2 suspects have been shot, and suspects that assault, delay, obstruct, or threaten a law enforcement officer's life. It goes back to the choices that we just talked about. When individuals make poor choices, poor decisions, come into a law enforcement situation, an active law enforcement situation, conspire to come into that situation, whether that's based on ideology, we don't know. That'll be in the investigation that we just talked about. That's what we base the split-second decisions on.
So he gave you a little clue there of some other aspect of what they'll discover in the investigation: ideology. They'll be looking at Alex Pretti's ideology. The fact that he would look after veterans, that must really, really annoy the Trump regime. I mean, it's really difficult to get this one away. I mean, but bar the fact that he had a holstered gun on him, everything about Alex Pretti sort of flies in the face of what a domestic terrorist could be, look like, seem, value system, etc. But they will be striving to find his ideology. It's frightening, isn't it? It's frightening stuff. This is the head of the Gestapo. Another clip from him, I think.
When politicians, community leaders, and some journalists engage in that heated rhetoric we keep talking about, when they make the choice to vilify law enforcement, calling law enforcement names like Gestapo, or using the term kidnapping, that is a choice that is made. There are actions and consequences that come from those choices. And then when you choose, when someone chooses to listen to a politician, a so-called journalist, a community leader that spouted that type of vilification towards law enforcement or anything else, when you choose to listen to that, that is a choice, and there are consequences and actions there also. I think we saw that yesterday.
He had to have a long run up, didn't he, for the word vilification. He's loving it. He's loving it. They're all just cock a hoop, aren't they, on their steroids. Let me just share with you this quote here. This is Tiberius Files. This is not what you're seeing in America. I think this is a tweet, is it? This is not an abnormality. This is America's soul being revealed. Your lack of previous understanding is because of the curtain of propaganda that has now been lifted. And what that basically means is nothing about the current situation is new. This is how it's always been. We've just had leaders in America who have been more efficient at legitimizing and sanitizing their authoritarianism in their country and around the world. And that's why, again, I speak to the idea that I find Starmer the most sinister caretaker of our system, because he purports to be something very different. He's lured people in, Labour supporters, people of a more socialist ilk, thinking, well, maybe, yes, he's quite centrist, but maybe he's something else. He's not. He's a caretaker for the system. He's the gimp to Trump. The fact that he's such a gimp to Trump, can only find his voice about Greenland, can't find his voice about Gaza. It speaks to where the world is. And none of it is new. It's just that in a weird way, Trump's done us a huge favor. Trump can't hide what he is. It's like he can't lie. He does lie, but not very well. And so we see it. And so he's removed, in that act of the Wizard of Oz, he's removed the great big green curtain from behind the arras, and we've seen behind it, oh my God, it's all fucking levers and cogs, and we're all being manipulated. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. And that's where we're at. I'm just going to read you some empowering quotes. Liam Cunningham, the actor. The greatest ally fascism and genocide has are the people who say, I don't follow the news, it's too depressing. Perfectly put. This is the Tiberius quote again. AOC posted on X in response to JD Vance, you are defending the open killing of everyday Americans for exercising their constitutional rights. First, the mother of a 6-year-old child, now an ICU nurse to veterans, both shot at nearly point-blank range. All without reflection or remorse. People will not forget this. There's a lot of issues with AOC. There's a lot of issues with every single fucking American politician there is. So many of them. There's about 6 that aren't entirely compromised. But AOC's comment at the end there is one that I think we should leave this live. We're not going to talk about Starmer at the moment. We will talk about that in another live. All without reflection or remorse. That's the part of it that scares me. No reflection or remorse. I hope that in the privacy of JD Vance at home, even Donald Trump on the toilet as he's frantically truth socialing every night, the reason they are being so sort of cast iron in their characterization of this poor man as a domestic terrorist is because fundamentally, on a deep cellular soulful level, they know they've done wrong. And it's those who know they're doing wrong, who carry on doing wrong, That's where we need to worry. And I think one of the problems with these ICE militia agents is this. There's a lot of posts increasingly popping up on certainly Instagram that I'm seeing, where a number of kind of, anti-ICE and, American activists are saying things like, there will come a day, ICE officers and agents, when we will remember what you did, and there will be a kind of judgment day. At some point, the Democrats will be in, or there'll be a reversal of fortunes for Trump's regime. I don't share in that potential optimism further down the line, because what I feel is happening with the ICE agents is Trump is luring them all, actually, these ICE agents, into their, and I don't have any empathy or sympathy for them whatsoever on this. They're all being lured into a bear trap of their own, which is their fear of being doxxed, pursued, vigilante style, is what will embolden them when the wheels come off even more, the American system, and civil war steps even closer. Their culpability in what they've done, their vulnerability to those who they've hurt, harmed, shot, killed, arrested, deported, will make them double down on a bad choice that they've made. And that is how Trump is incentivizing his federally protected militia. This was a strategy to create a morally compromised militia full of complete meatheads and numpties, to do things and make decisions in communities that will forever leave them vulnerable unless they just double down on it more and more and more. Trump doesn't have to say anything for that to continue to happen. That's the ignition that's the kind of litmus paper that he's lit. Frightening, terrifying, and really uncertain days. As I say, we will probably might do another live later to talk about the Starmer situation, because it is significant what's going on with Starmer and Andy Burnham. Have a good day, guys. As I say, more content will be landing later. Keep your thoughts coming in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, share this, do whatever you want with it. And have a great day, guys.